I want to talk today about reinventing yourself in motherhood. Let's be honest, the reinvention has happened throughout our journey, but when it comes to motherhood, it's just a different ball game, and the set of rules vary from minute to minute. I'll touch on careers, values, life priorities, and healing. And just a reminder to hit the subscribe button below so that you don't miss a beat when it comes to all my new drops. I appreciate it so much. So let's start off by talking all things career and what that looks like for you. Working for someone or having your own business, right? My aspirations were all about being this corporate boss with a flashy title and a life full of really fancy and flashy things. So I put up with a lot to start my corporate climb of this ladder, and I did a lot that I'm not proud of. But when you're in it, it's the name of the game, right? When I was on track for head of department because I was the front runner for the promotion, I fell pregnant. Total shock and total curveball. It took me such a long time to accept. I actually think 3 home pregnancy tests and I still didn't believe it. So I went off for a blood test. So here we are. I'm pregnant. I'm on track for my dream job. And let's be honest here, women who get pregnant and become mums are no longer viewed the same way in corporate. So, during my pregnancy, I worked myself into exhaustion to prove that I can do it all and be that superwoman that we are conditioned to be at any point, right? Then there was a leadership change, and some pretty nasty corporate bullying started to happen, and I was the prime target. Ironically, it was done by other women. So, after being hospitalized for stress and being booked off into my maternity leave, I had my son 4 days later with a very traumatic birth. I faced terrible postpartum depression, which I actually was totally unaware of, and I had a very unhappy baby. As a first time mom, I don't think I could ever put into words how heavy this time was for me. But what it did do was put a spotlight into getting the hell out of corporate and away from such a toxic environment, which I did. Now, my career reinvention spanned across various roles in marketing and operations arena, but I was yet to dive into or even understand the online or digital world, right? A few months after leaving my corporate job, I found myself in financial ruins. I had a 4-month-old baby, a husband who was barely making ends meet, and I had nothing. I had a job that I was promised, which fell through, and I was left high and dry. So I did what any mother would do, and I jumped into every course, every masterclass, every webinar, whatever I could get my hands onto, and learned the world of online and digital marketing. My drive and my why had changed since having a baby, and I was looking at more remote roles that allowed me to have the flexibility to be with my baby should he need me. I need to emphasize the importance of this because if you're not grounded in your why internally, you won't interview effectively and you may come across as desperate or at worst incompetent. Once you've aligned with your why, and that is your driving force, your jobs, the contracts or clients that you're looking for will be on track to hit the right ones. This then led me into opening my own consulting business, and I spent a lot of time going through job descriptions of roles that I would like to take on, or analyzing where my specific gaps are in those requirements so that I could upskill and close those gaps and apply for those contracts. A few of the questions that I asked myself during this time when I was in motherhood and faced a career reinvention was, what are your top 3 priorities that you need in order to land your dream job, contract, or client? So, in other words, if it needs to be a remote role or a part-time role or a 3-month contract or project-based client, it could be working for a specific industry or company, or it could be launching your own business. What are your core strengths and skills, and how can you leverage them? What are your gaps or areas of improvement that you can skill up and feel confident in? What is your desired monthly income and how can you get there? So, if it's a job, you look for specific salary brackets, right? If it's a client, make sure that your hourly rate is priced properly. If it's your own business and it's product or service based, make sure that your pricing is not only competitive, but it's one that can sustain your requirement. And the last one, but I would say the pretty important one, is the sustainable. Is this a season to get me to the next one? Or do I want to be doing this long term? And why is this important? Because you want to allocate your energy appropriately, right? So, in my experience with my firstborn, I had an expectation that I was going to be doing this long term. But the business model that I had adopted, which was client based, was not one that I wanted to follow. Whilst I continued with the client-based model, I adapted it to more of a longer term contract with remote working, if that makes sense. Now, one of the biggies in reinventing yourself is reassessing your core values. For me personally, mine went from ambition to integrity in a heartbeat. And integrity is still one of my key core values. The instant that your child is born, it's no longer about you. So your values like selflessness and patience and empathy all start to play a much bigger role in your life, right? In the newborn stage, it's all about survival. It's brutal. But as these little humans start to grow, you'll notice how much pressure you instinctively put on yourself to ensure that their place in the world and their evolution is one of least resistance and acceptance. What happens then is your values start to play a big part in your decision making and your parenting style, your life in general. I'm not playing this down by any stretch of the imagination. This is tough. And it goes really deep into our narrative and our identity. But once we understand things, it gets easier. So, to use my example again, I was driven by ambition at all costs. When Nathan was born, I started to ask myself, would he be proud of who I am? The fact that I would do anything to get the job done and make more money for a company that didn't add any value into somebody else's life. Say and do whatever you need to get to where you want to go. The answer was always a hard no. So my value shifted into integrity, and I feel completely aligned with it. Would he be proud now? Yes. Am I still ambitious? Of course, but most certainly not at all costs. And if I'm in a situation where my integrity is ever in question, I'm out. He will grow up knowing that I do what I say. I show up. I am honest, even when it's uncomfortable. And who knows, maybe he'll even adopt it. Here are my top 5 questions to help you along in this. Number 1, think about a moment when you felt most fulfilled as a mom. I get that this is tricky as we are tested daily, but take a moment here. What values were at the core of that feeling or experience? Number 2, if you had to list your top 3, what would they be? And are you aligned with them in your actions and decisions? Number 3, what values do you want to instill in your children? Number 4, if you were to look back on your life as a mom, what values do you hope will have defined your legacy? Number 5, are there any values that you've been neglecting or downplaying in your life as a mom, or any that you'd like to bring back into focus? Now, when you become a mom, suddenly your world takes on a new dimension. What used to be important may not hold the same significance, and priorities emerge. For me, the career ambitions that once consumed my thoughts and had shifted, and quality family time and raising a well rounded child became my full focus. It's essential to acknowledge that our life priorities can change over time, and that's not just okay, it's natural. It's a reflection of our growth and adaptation as parents. These will probably change a few times as you go through the seasons of motherhood. For me personally, my priorities when I had newborns was vastly different to what they were when they became a little bit more self sufficient. like self-care. This was done a little bit more regularly when we were out of the newborn stage. But I do know that your biggest priority will probably be that you'll be focused on how to be better for your child and how to make sure that they have the best start and all the opportunities that you could possibly give them. Let's talk about the healing and self care. As a mom, I know that this is never a priority, and there are always more pressing issues competing for our attention at any given moment. But we need to push this up the pecking order. You know that saying when you're on an aircraft and the safety rules come up and they say, please make sure that you only put your oxygen mask on to your child after you have put one on yourself. That's how we're supposed to be living. We need to fill our cup first, otherwise, you can't help your kids. When I was reaching burnout during one of my terrible consulting gigs, and my son was around too, it was a good wake up call for me as I started to put a routine in place. Everything shifted, and the quality of my relationship with my son increased tenfold. All I did was I started to walk around my neighborhood every morning for 30 minutes, a slow, fresh air kind of walk. I then added in some meditation into each morning, and now I bounce between podcasts, my book, or meditation, but I still do my mind clearing walks. Another big one that took me a while to really put into practice was setting boundaries. I'm a recovering people pleaser, so this often takes a bit more energy and focus. However, it really is critical. As a mom, your primary focus is on your kids, especially when they are younger, right? So you tend to feel a little bit of guilt when it comes to other demands on your time that you can't fully commit to. So you find yourself saying yes, but meaning no a lot. Take a minute, honestly. When you're invited to something or asked to do something, just take a minute. If you can sleep on it, even better. And respond when you've had some time to really process whether you want to do it or not. You have to be selfish during these early stages of your child's life. It is so, so demanding on you emotionally and mentally and physically and spiritually. Don't underestimate the load that you are carrying. And the guilt, let it go. The final bit that I do want to touch on here is the resilience that we all have as our superpower. It goes without saying that challenges become a normal occurrence for us, right? I want to name at least 10 that I have had to personally face and work through to overcome. Number one, time management. Juggling work, childcare, household responsibilities, self care can be overwhelming. Two, mom guilt, relentless. All about balancing personal and family needs while trying not to let the self doubt take over. Three, work life balance. I struggle to allocate time for my kids, partner, myself, my business. Four, societal expectations. Mom bashing is real. I have often felt judged or criticized for my choices, whether I've decided to focus on my career or stay at home. Five, self identity and identity shift. We focus solely on everyone else and primarily the kids that we lose our own identity. Six, a big one, financial constraints. Seven, self care and burnout. We often neglect our own well being while prioritizing our family. Neglecting self care can lead to burnout and physical or mental health issues. Eight, stress and anxiety. Nine, lack of support. Insufficient support, whether it's from a partner, family, or a community, it can be a significant challenge. And 10, skills and knowledge gaps. If you resonate with any of these, I got you. I'll talk through a couple of my strategies that I have used for each of these challenges. Let's go. Number one, for time management, prioritize and plan. I personally use my electronic calendar as well as a whiteboard in the kitchen. Yep, activities, meals, to dos, chores, so no one is confused with what needs to be done. And this gets updated every Sunday evening, and of course, ad hoc if it needs to if anything does pop up, like additional activities, especially in my case. I delegate tasks. I always ask my partner or my helper to just pick up a couple of extra things if I've got to focus on specific things during that week. Set boundaries. Make sure that everyone knows and everyone is aware that the schedule is there and stick to it. Keep the balance. Number 2, mom guilt. The worst. I remind myself every day that chasing my dream is going to benefit my family as well as me. When I find myself berating myself for something that is just unnecessary, well, let's be honest, berating ourselves is unnecessary at any given point. I switch focus and I focus on a recent achievement, big or small, to remind myself that I am doing the best that I can. Number 3, work-life balance. Michelle Obama once said, "We can have it all, but not at the same time." And I want to normalize this. Look at flexible work arrangements, whatever that looks like for you to maintain focus on your goals. For me, it was working remotely or doing online sessions with clients. Quality over quantity, always. Be present in everything that you do. Outsource what you can. If you can get help cleaning the house, doing the ironing, or tutoring the kids during homework, do it. 4, societal expectations. This. Stick to your plan, your values, your goals, and block out the noise. My latest statement for myself is, if it's not helping me achieve my goals, if it's not making me money or giving me peace, I'm busy. Educate the ones who are important. So if you find yourself in a situation where you have a family member or a friend judging you for some of your choices, educate them on why you are making those choices and why it's important for you to work towards. Number 5, identity. This does move around a bit through the baby stages, but keep true to what makes you happy. Drive your passions, your sense of self, and your personal goals. 6, financial constraints. I don't have a quick fix on this one, but what I can say is that if you're laser focused on what you need to be doing and you're cutting out all the noise, it's going to fix itself. 7, self-care and burnout. Start with a 10-minute fresh air walk, a meditation. And for me, journaling has been super helpful. 8, stress and anxiety. I could sit on this one for hours. Meditation, journaling, deep breathing. I'm sure you've seen and heard it all over the internet and through everybody around you. But please, it does work. As long as you're consistent. Exercise is another big one. It could be yoga or a run, whichever works for you and your body. And again, consistency. Number 9, lack of support. This is still a problem for me, but having open and honest communication does take a little bit of pressure off you. Tell your partner or your family that you're really looking for some additional support, whatever that may be, but say it. And number 10, skills and knowledge gaps. What worked really well for me was online courses, communities who were also on the starting blocks, and learning from the greats who have experienced the challenges so that you don't have to. These aren't a one size fits all. I totally get that. But I'm sharing what has worked for me. And if any of these help you, then my job is done. I've taken enough of your time today, so I'm going to sign off. But I want to thank you again for being here. And if you found any of this useful or would like me to cover anything specific, please jump into the comments and let me know. Until next time, I want you to remember, you've got this. You're doing an amazing job.